On paper, this feels like a sure thing. At the 2026 U.S. Figure Skating Championships, Madison Chock and Evan Bates won again. That's the headline. But if you actually watched what happened on the ice that night in St. Louis, that headline feels almost misleading. Because this didn't feel like a win. It felt like an explosion. This was their 7th national title, their 5th in a row. A historic moment that moves them ahead of the legendary Merrill Davis and Charlie White for the most ice dance titles in American history. But as the final notes of their music faded into a thunderous standing ovation, the look on Madison Chock's face wasn't pure victory. It was shock. She turned to Evan and said just one word: surreal. At 33 and 36 years old, they're not supposed to be getting faster. They're not supposed to be setting personal bests. And they definitely aren't supposed to be the most intimidating force in ice dance right now. But as they move toward the Milano Cortina Olympics, as the oldest U.S. Olympic figure skaters in nearly a century, Madison Chock and Evan Bates are doing something no one in the history of the sport has dared to do. They are peaking at the exact moment everyone expected them to walk away. If you think this 7th title was only about breaking a record, you're missing the point. This was a warning. For over a decade, the record held by Merrill Davis and Charlie White was seen as the gold standard. 6 titles, a level of consistency and dominance that defined an entire era of American skating. In January 2026, Chock and Bates didn't just match that standard, they blew right past it. They posted an incredible total score of 228.87. But the real story is in the numbers behind it. In the free dance, they scored 137.17, driven by a massive 77.89 technical score. To put that into perspective, those kinds of numbers are usually reserved for teams in their early 20s, with fresh legs and endless energy. For Chock and Bates to reach that level in their 15th season together is almost unheard of, and their dominance isn't just about the score, it's about the margin. They finished 15 points ahead of the silver medalists. In ice dance, where results are often decided by fractions, a 5-point lead isn't just a win, it's a massive gap. Evan Bates spoke about it afterward with a level of honesty you don't often hear from champions. He reminded everyone that their journey hasn't been linear. He talked about the 5-year gap between their first title in 2015 and their second in 2020. Most teams wouldn't survive that kind of drought. They would see younger teams rising, new stars taking over, and assume their time was up. Chock and Bates did the opposite. They used that 1,800-day stretch to rebuild everything. They understood that if they wanted to last 15 years in this sport, they couldn't just be great skaters. They had to be survivors. If their 2025 Queen program felt like a celebration, their 2026 Painted Black Free Dance is something entirely different. It's a confrontation. Set to an orchestral version of the Rolling Stones classic featured in Westworld, the routine is dark, intense, and aggressive, blending flamenco and paso doble. In a bold move that caught many off guard, Chock and Bates flipped the traditional roles. Madison isn't the delicate partner being guided. She's the matador. Evan isn't just supporting, he's the bull. The choreography, created with Spanish dancer Antonio Najarro, is sharp, controlled, and constantly building. It grows in intensity over 4 minutes without ever losing its grip. From the opening combination curve lift, which earned a massive 15.7 points, to the final diagonal step sequence, every moment feels like a deliberate rejection of the safe, predictable path veterans usually take. Most teams at this stage choose nostalgic music. They lean into romance. They skate to protect their legacy. Chock and Bates are skating like they want to tear that legacy apart and rebuild something even more dangerous. The image of Madison using her skirt as a matador's cape in the final seconds isn't just for show. It represents control. In an Olympic season where most teams are focused on avoiding mistakes, Chock and Bates are the only ones taking real artistic risks. They're not just skating programs, they're creating something cinematic. There's a reason most ice dancers retire before 30. The precision required for world-class elements demands extreme physical and mental control. After 15 years together, most bodies start to feel that wear and tear. But for Chock and Bates, those 15 years have turned into their biggest strength. In St. Louis, they hit 7 level 4 elements. Every single element earned a grade of execution of 2.25 or higher. This is what true unison looks like. It's a level of connection that only comes from years of shared experience. They don't need to look at each other to know exactly where the other is. They're completely in sync, in a way younger teams like Emilia Zingis and Vadim Kolesnik simply can't replicate yet. But that kind of longevity comes at a cost. Evan admitted he's trying to keep his emotions in check. but the weight of this 5-year journey is starting to hit him. They are the last of their generation. They are the bridge between the era of Merrill Davis and the future of the sport. They're carrying the legacy of American ice dance on their shoulders. And instead of collapsing under that pressure, they're using it to push even harder. They're skating not just side by side, but for everyone who helped them reach this level. In June 2024, Madison and Evan got married. Fans saw it as a perfect ending, but within the skating world, it raised questions. Historically, when ice dance partners get married, the competitive edge starts to fade. The partnership feels complete, the drive shifts. But for Chock and Bates, marriage seems to have unlocked something new. In their 2026 media appearances, they're not talking about sacrifice. They're talking about appreciation. Madison's words about soaking in the love from fans sound like someone who knows the end is near and wants to experience every moment of it. They train at the Ice Academy of Montreal, the most elite training environment in the world. They're surrounded by top talent, but they've clearly become the leaders of that group. Their relationship has created a fearless mindset. They're not afraid to fall. They're not afraid of bad scores. They have each other no matter what. And when you remove fear from elite athletes, you create something dangerous. You get a team that can skate to Lenny Kravitz with confidence and style, making everyone else look like they're trying too hard. You get a team that turns something expected into something unforgettable. The countdown has officially begun. When the U.S. Olympic team was announced, Chock and Bates were right at the top. They're heading to Italy as gold medal favorites. And for the first time in their careers, they're not the underdogs. In 2014, they finished 8th. In 2018, 9th. In 2022, 4th. The most painful position in sports. That 4th place finish in Beijing is the fuel behind everything they're doing in 2026. They stood on the podium in the team event, but never got their individual medal. They watched the fallout of the Russian doping scandal delay their moment for years. They experienced a victory that didn't feel complete. Now, Milan is their chance to rewrite the story. They enter as 3-time world champions, riding a 1-3 competition win streak with no real challengers domestically. But their biggest challenge is internal. As the oldest athletes on the team, they have to manage recovery, fatigue, and the mental pressure of knowing the finish line is close. Evan's comments about building momentum into Milan aren't just talk. It's strategy. They are locked in on February 6th, and they're not planning to lose focus. But here's the truth. Success in 2026 isn't just about winning gold. For Madison Chock and Evan Bates, the real victory already happened in St. Louis. That 7th title wasn't just another record. It was a message to the next generation that a career doesn't have an expiration date, that you can be 15 years into a partnership and still evolve, that you can be married in your mid-30s and still outwork younger competitors, that you can take full control of your own story. In a sport that constantly tries to decide when athletes should step away, Chock and Bates are the ones writing their own ending. When they take the ice in Italy for what could be the final time, the result will matter. Medals always do. But their legacy is already secure. They are the most accomplished ice dance team in U.S. history. Not because they were the youngest or the fastest, but because they stayed. They stayed through the setbacks, through the doubts, through the long gaps without winning. And they stayed long enough to become something unforgettable. Months from now, when the scores blur together and the records don't feel as fresh, this night in January will still stand out, because it captures the moment 2 athletes realized something powerful. The most important move in a career isn't holding on tighter, it's knowing when to let go. And in 2026, Madison Chock and Evan Bates are letting go straight into the history books.